You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it.
Three, two, one, here we go. Welcome to the Last Breath Huntcast. I'm super pumped to bring this one to you. It's something that I have been playing and dabbling around with the last several years with the deer I've harvested. So breaking right to it, episode 172 today of the Huntcast, we are going to be talking with DeerAge.com. DeerAge.com is actually a wildlife research institute that does tooth aging on a multiple of species. Obviously, for us, it's going to be heavily weighted towards whitetails, but today, my special guest is Heather Stevens. She's the Director of Operations at DeerAge, and I've got a ton of questions to talk to her about what they do, how they do it, the data behind it, and all kinds of other things involving aging animals, and specifically whitetails. So I am, like I said, I'm just really excited to talk to her. Talk about the process. I've done it on several of the bucks that I've killed. I've got Hershey's teeth there now getting aged. And it just, for me, what I like to chase and pursue and kind of add the allure to the deer that I've harvested, I've been setting my teeth in to figure out, hey, are you worth your weight to be able to age these deer accurately? But before we do that, as always, we got to thank the people that make this possible. This podcast is brought to you by Badlands Gear, and we've talked about it almost to ad nauseum, how much we really enjoy their products and how they just continue to set the bar for whitetail hunters, where the price point definitely is not something you can just go out and buy. Well, for me or for most people, right? It's not something you're just going to, on a whim, buy the Pyre outfit, but it's an investment. That Badlands skull has an unconditional warranty. And in fact, a good friend of mine, Michael Daniel of Tompkins Taxidermy, he loves his Pyre suit, and he went to Missouri, got himself in a little bit of a briar patch, and he put himself a pretty good tear in his Pyre bibs. So he's taking advantage of that warranty, and can't say he has enough great things. I messed that up. He can't say enough great things about Badlands and their warranty. So you can use our code LASTBREATH22BL30, all caps, to get you 30% off. Really excited for this year's ATA shows. They're going to drop some new garments and other things that are going to complement the entire system from Badlands. Next is Tompkins Taxidermy. Boy, they're pretty filled up right now. They've got some awesome deer. If you guys still have one in the freezer, or if you're thinking about one, or maybe you shot a buck that you lost the cape on, those guys are really phenomenal about working with their customers on capes and providing them with an economical option to mount that buck and preserve that memory forever. You should go over there and check them out. And one of the things that I just want to highlight about them that stands out to me, if you just search taxidermy in the Quad City area, you're going to see some other taxidermists, and I'm sure they do really good work, but the Google reviews sets them apart. There is a huge, huge separation on the Google reviews that Tompkins has and everybody else in the area. And that just goes to show that customers of theirs have taken the time that they were so happy with the service and the product that they received to go onto Google and leave them a review. So let the reviews speak for themselves. If you're interested in doing something and preserving that memory forever, I would check out Tompkins Taxidermy. Last is Moultrie Mobile. We've been working with Moultrie for such a long time. We've developed some fantastic relationships with the guys and gals that work over there. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. I've said it before in the last couple podcasts, and as we're getting closer to that ATA mark, man, they're dropping some stuff that's going to be pretty cool. I think you guys are going to be interested in it, especially if you're a guy that utilizes cellular trail cameras and enjoy that feature. You know, for the guys, I think the big thing is a convenience for me. I'm a local hunter. I have most of my properties are very accessible and easy for me. But guys like Mike Lemansky, that he's bouncing all over the United States with his job, being an all-American badass. Again, Mike, can't thank you enough. But for him to be able to take advantage of cellular technology and look at the lease that he has in Illinois from anywhere in the nation, that's pretty valuable. Or guys that have that deer camp and maybe down in Missouri or where else. It's really nice to be able to have a camera that's going to have good battery life and that's going to work for you, and be able to tap into it and see what's happening when you're far, far away. So with that being said, and introducing this, man, I'm stoked. Episode 172 is going to be pretty interesting. I'm excited to call Heather. We're going to get her on the horn, and we're going to talk about what they do at deerage.com.
Hello.
Heather, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. You are live on the Last Breath Huntcast. Thank you for taking some time to talk to us today.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
So before we get into it, I gave a brief introduction of what we're going over today, but go ahead and talk more about yourself. Give us your, 5-minute commercial, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school for microbiology, and shortly after started my own animal histology laboratory, which I still own today. And what we do is we perform histology on all animal tissues for both veterinary diagnostic work as well as research across the nation. And through that, DeerAge was actually my client, and they asked me in 2018 to buy them out. And so I did, and it's slowly taken over my whole life.
That's awesome. So you are the owner of DeerAge. You're not just a director of operations.
That's correct. I actually own the company.
So are you a hunter?
I am not a hunter, and my customers should be very grateful for that, because I'm actually around during the hunting season to take the teeth in.
Right. Like, it's kind of like a taxidermist. Most taxidermists, they love to hunt or do some form, but they're so busy during hunting season they can't.
Yeah. So my husband actually, he's like partly the reason why we ended up buying this company, because he is a hunter and he was a taxidermist for 20 years. And so he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So here we are.
All right. So, okay, you kind of broke the ice a little bit, and we're going to cover DeerAge, right? A majority of our listeners are whitetail hunters. We have a couple really cool pockets of guys that listen out west, and then in the south and out east. We kind of cover the nation, but obviously being based out of the Midwest, our bread and butter are the whitetail hunters. And just combing through your Instagram, it looks like that's kind of the lion's share of what you guys sample there too.
Yeah, America's favorite game animal, right? Yeah, that is definitely the bulk of our business.
So getting into this a little bit more, I looked up your stamp. So that's what the HTL stands for, is your histology, right?
Yeah, histotechnologist, correct.
So that's pretty cool. I did some research in ichthyology in my undergraduate, which study of freshwater ecosystems. So I'm definitely not as well endowed as you are in science and the new modern ways of it. But I appreciate it. I guess that's the best thing I can say. I had to get through organic chemistry, and once I was there, it was on to the labs, and that was my favorite part of college.
Yeah, exactly. Organic chemistry is pretty fun for everyone, I think.
No, not at all. I mean, I bet you, even owning multiple labs, you probably don't use OChem very much in your day-to-day life.
Thank you, Jesus. No, I do not.
So, okay, Heather, so you are the actual owner of DeerAge. I want you to explain what DeerAge does really quick. I've talked about it before in previous podcasts. I've been a customer of yours for several years now. In fact, you guys have some teeth of mine right there. Really curious about this specimen. It's a unique situation for me. Typically, I'm the crazy guy that knows exactly how old a deer is, and I kind of watch him grow and develop into the buck that I harvest. But the samples that are at your place right now are off of a lease that when I acquired it, I had to guess what that deer was, right? So I'm trying to gauge myself as how good are you at accurately aging an animal.
Yeah. And are you familiar with the leased land area? Is it nearby where you normally hunt, or is this like a entirely new area for you?
It was a brand new herd of deer. So
Cool.
When we picked up the lease, it was, hit the ground running, and there seemed to be some good age structure there. And the interesting thing about this buck is he was very easy to distinguish. He had a blind eye and a very unique rack. And
Cool.
even though I tried to target him several years in the past, he'd always slip by. And this year, finally, he slipped up. So
Ooh.
I think he's going to be an older species, specimen of yours. I hope so. But,
Yeah.
Again, time will tell.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to find out for you.
So do you do all of the aging yourself, or I'm assuming you have some staff that help you out?
So I do have staff members, but I tend to be a little bit of a control freak. I do all of the retail aging. So any of our state contracts, Dr. Vipin Sharma, who is our director of research, he does the aging for them. But with our retail customers, I take it as seriously as they do. So I personally do all of the aging. Occasionally, Chad will help me. That's my husband. He's pretty versed at reading teeth too, but I've just seen so many teeth that I'm very good at it, and I consider myself to be extremely accurate. So right now, it's only me. At some point, because we are growing and growing, I may have to let those reins go a little bit, but I would prefer to start with Chad reading versus anyone else. It's just, like I said, I take it very seriously. I know that everyone that's sending in to us is taking it very seriously for a variety of reasons. And so I just want to make sure that it's being done to the highest degree of accuracy.
Wow. So you have a lot on your plate then, because you said you have another lab. I mean, in fact, when we were setting this up, you said you were analyzing mouse brains, right?
Yeah. So yeah, funny story. Yeah, I have a giant safety study going right now for a pharmaceutical company. And this particular safety study is extremely important. It's to determine if a drug is actually safe or not to go to market. So I am choosing to handle that again. Control freak, I have problems. So I am handling it myself and working nights and weekends and ensuring that I am touching everything myself and making sure nothing is getting missed. And so, yeah, yesterday when I was at the lab cutting up mouse brains, some idiot hit a pole and we lost power. So I had to shut everything down and come back today. So here we are.
Well, power is restored, I'm assuming.
Power is restored. Yes.
Okay. So from mouse brains to deer teeth, let's explain to them the aging process that you do. And because there are different methods, and I want you to break the ice and open up how you at deer age these samples.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we're doing what's called the Cementum Annuli method. And what that entails is a pretty extensive laboratory process. So we have to first remove all the calcium from the teeth so that the teeth are flexible. And then they go through a variety of different chemicals using, various pieces of equipment. And then they're embedded into a solid wax block and then cut on, again, more equipment and then put onto a microscope slide. And then after they go onto a slide, they are stained with our proprietary stain that we worked on. And then after the staining process, we now, as of last year, have a digital record for every single slide. So they're scanned and archived and then read. So yeah, I go through them and read the slides. And now with the barcoding system, everything is much more accurate and a lot more, trackable. It's easier to pull up a slide if we need to. We can just scan it. So yeah, that's kind of how the process, that's a very, very, very truncated nutshell version of what we do to get to the age of the deer.
Right. So I kind of am envisioning this. I'm assuming, it's not just so rudimentary like you're talking about. And I noticed that you guys, I didn't know it was a proprietary diet, but I figured that's how you had to do it to be able to see those rings. And I don't want to jump into it yet. I want you to be able to explain how Cementum Annuli Aging is performed, because a lot of people don't know that. And I'd like to hear how you explain it, because the way I explain it is kind of like growth rings on a tree, and I don't want to be inaccurate with that.
No, that's basically exactly how I explain it to you. It is just like growth rings on a tree. So every year, it's just part of the growth cycle of the teeth. And what happens is the growth will, speed up and slow down. And as the deer is aging, those deposits are closer together on a cyclical basis. So you can actually, just like a tree, when you can tell that bark, you can count the lines when the bark has grown. It's the exact same with the deer. The only difference I would say is that from I mean, I don't exactly spend a lot of time looking at tree rings, but from the tree rings that I've seen, they're really, really consistent. Whereas deer can be all over the map. Whitetail in particular, if you're supplementing with different things, it can affect the growth rings. And I found that if a deer has an injury, a prior injury, for example, it can affect the growth rings. So they can be a little bit more difficult to interpret. It's not as simple as aging a tree, but it definitely can be. And that's where having consistency in the process is really important. You have to have a very consistent decalcification time and consistent processing, consistent staining. All of those kinds of things help eliminate errors in the process.
Wow. So and teeth don't grow for the lifespan of a deer. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Heather, but it's the deposits from like annual grazing. I did a little bit of my own prodding and poking, and it sounds like
excellent.
These vegetation deposits really is what it is. With that winter season kind of occurring, you get a change in feed, and that's what causes these rings, I believe.
I think it's a little of everything. So there's been different theories on why the deposits form, particularly in the fall and winter, right? So previously people had said, okay, well, it's because of the harsh conditions, right, in the fall and the winter. Well, if that were true, I wouldn't be able to age stuff from Africa and from Texas and places that don't have harsh winters. Yet I age them all the time. And some of them even have really great lines, right? So it really can't be that. Now, could it be a factor? Sure. Right. But I'm of the belief that it's definitely more hormonal, right? The deer go into the rut. That's a high stress period. For example, when I had some deer that I aged, so it's a little bit of a long story. I don't know how long the podcast is. I'll try to shorten
as long as you want to make it.
Okay. So I had this guy who sends in 50 or 60 deer teeth every single year from the same ranch. And one year he requested a second look. We allow our customers, if they think there's been an error, to request a second look. And he had requested a second look on almost like half of them. And I thought, well, that's really weird. He's never done that before.
Right.
So I pulled the whole case and I talked to him and I said, I noticed, you kind of had a problem with all of these. And he's like, well, we think they're older. You had aged them at like 3.5 or whatever, but we think they're 5.5 and this, that, and the other. So I kind of started digging into it. And I noticed that the last 2 years of lines were almost on top of each other. And then one deer had really, really messed up lines. And I was like, wow, this is a disaster, this deer, So I said, I don't know what happened. I said, but it looks like the last 2 years, the lines are just right on top of each other. I don't know if something's kind of changed with your herd, but you are right. They are older. And then this one deer, I don't know what's going on with this deer, but the lines are a total disaster. And the guy was just astonished. And he's like, oh my gosh, for the last 2 years, there's been flooding. They've been pushed off their land. It's been like a really high stress time for this herd. And that particular deer you picked out had like a very severe injury and the rack was messed up. And
interesting.
Like, wow, I can see all of that in the teeth. And so then I started kind of asking customers here and there, when I would see teeth that were really messed up, I'm like, hey, did this deer have any injuries or a weird rack? And like little by little, they'd be like, yeah, they did. He had a this, or he had a that, or he had an arrow in him from 2 years ago, or, just all these different things. And I'm like, wow. So it is a stress response, in my opinion, to where that growth ring like slows down and they can kind of stack on top of each other. And those are the kinds of little tiny nuances that can affect the accuracy, right? Everyone's always about how accurate is it? Those tiny little things, that's partly why I don't want to let the reins go, because it's really easy for someone who doesn't have the experience to kind of pick those things out,
Well, so that's a really cool story. And I'm sure you're not a whitetail biologist, but most of a deer's hormones, the rut is completely affected by photoperiod. A lot of people confuse it that it's affected by temperature or other factors. And when you look at what causes the rut is spurred on by a doe coming into estrus, and her entire estrus cycle is dictated around when she's going to drop a fawn to have the most likelihood of surviving. Mm-hmm. So the only way to accurately predict when that right time in the spring is with photo period. And so it would be, I could see how that would totally stand up to your hypothesis or your theory of stress, because it's the only thing that would be consistent every single year. And like you said, doesn't matter what the temperature range is. I could see how severe temperature ranges could increase the stress, kind of like your example of that, the flooding there. But wow, that's cool. I'm kind of a geek in that sense too.
Good. Yeah, I'm a total data nerd.
Student of the game. Yeah. Oh man, if my Google Drive were to crash, I'd be lost. Like I'm the, okay, I'll share this with you. I literally make a spreadsheet for Christmas with everybody I'm going to buy for, all their presents, the websites, how much it costs, when it arrived, when it's been shipped, like all this. It's crazy. So.
Oh, Excel, the joys of Excel.
Yes. So, all right. So what other methods are there? Because a lot of people for a long time are really familiar with like the tooth wear method. Yeah. And there are some problems with that. And I think we should highlight how Cementum really kind of stands out in some of these other methods that are there.
Yeah. So that's like the most popular method, even more popular than Cementum aging, right? That's like the, I guess the good old boys way to do it. And there's a lot of people who don't particularly like us because we say that's not accurate, and like they make a living off of that, you know. There's even biologists out there that, you know, they will argue all day long that they are accurate doing it, whereas the data does not support that is an accurate way of aging. So I mean, some of the problems with wear aging is what the deer is eating, first of all, right? So you've got that going for you, where if you've got two deer that are the same age and one of them's sitting there chomping sticks all day and one of them's chomping clover all day, one of them's going to wear their teeth down faster, 100%. Right? And that's just a fact. And then you've got genetics, you know, just like people. I mean, you can't age a person because somebody has really worn down teeth, right? It wouldn't make any sense, right? Sure, you can surmise that as you get older, your teeth will have potentially had more wear, but at the same time, it depends on diet. It depends on genetics. Maybe yours are wearing faster than someone else's. It's just completely and utterly subjective. So, I mean, the study that we always point to is the one done by Montana Fish and Game, where they basically actually tested this with trained biologists. I think, don't quote me, but I think they used 7 trained biologists to do the wear method. These are people who do this all day, every day. That is their job, wear aging. And they were only accurate 38% of the time, I think, with white-tailed deer. That's less than half.
Oh, yeah, it's almost a third.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you compare that with Cementum aging, with white-tailed deer, it was 85% accurate. So the accuracy basically doubles right away just from that.
More than.
Yeah, exactly. And then I particularly think that Cementum aging is even more accurate than that. And the reason it wasn't showing as accurate at the time of the study is because they didn't do any age class discrimination. So one thing I will say is that younger deer, basically 3 and younger, are actually hard to age using this method. They can have what I consider to be intermediate growth lines or blurry lines. So as the deer is growing, and maybe because being a young deer is more stressful, you're right. I don't know. I've never been a young deer before. I don't know how stressful it is, but the lines can be a little bit messy. So I sometimes struggle with the younger ones and determining that. Now there's other ways you can look at the width of the cementum and look at the pulp and the width of that. And I'll take all that into consideration. But back at the time when they were doing this study, they weren't, right? So had they maybe excluded that age class, I think the accuracy would have been higher.
Interesting. Yeah.
With the study in general, because once you get into like the 4.5-year-old range, generally speaking, the lines are pretty darn clear.
So do you think the lines are clear with more stress or less stress? Because I would almost argue that a older deer, in terms of rutting activity, which increases stress levels, I would say that an older deer probably ruts harder than a younger deer.
Yeah, I mean, just from experience, between 5 and 9 years old typically have the best lines. Now, once you start throwing in other factors like feed or supplements, that can throw things off a little bit.
Sure.
So they become a little bit less clear in that instance. But
Man,
yeah,
I think go ahead.
more research could definitely be done in this area of cementum lines and why they form and what affects them and things like that. But the problem with it is like, I mean, you went to school for science, right? Money is the motivator for doing research. So if there's no
100%.
real money to be had, just because people want to know, that's not really a good enough reason for someone to invest in the research, right? So we're just kind of left speculating.
Man, so I'm assuming for controls, do you guys work with some deer farms or maybe some large high fence ranches where they have a very accurate idea, because most of those animals are tagged and they
Right.
can tell exactly how old they are.
So I've actually been trying to start up and, again, I'm only one person, so I'm just doing the best I can here. I've been trying to start up a known age sample program so that we can have some control samples. But in a way, they're not accurate controls because a high fence deer looks a lot different under the microscope than a free range deer.
Sure.
So
like you said, with feeding and other things, I didn't even think about that.
It's still not quite an accurate control. It would be nice to have them, but it's not the end all be all. Part of the reason I wanted to do the known age sample program is because we want to work on a new method of aging that does not involve using the teeth. And I can't really say a lot more about it than that, but we would need samples from known age deer that are actually known age deer. So that's partly why I started the known age sample program. It's not taking off as fast as I had hoped, but just with how small of a company we are, we don't have any investors. Like, this is all self-funded. We just do whatever we can,
Right. Okay. Interesting. So that's a good, we'll run back up a little bit, but the known age sample program was something I wanted to talk about. I know I wanted to add to our listener base. And then you have a nutrition program as well. That's
Yeah.
I think going to help you. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So the nutrition program, I started that primarily with the goal of eventually determining the right combination of feed for not only antler mass and growth, but also just overall health of the animal, right? So making sure that the lines are nice and clear so that when you're doing these types of feeds, it's not actually impacting the aging at all. And just also out of curiosity too, which is kind of my own little private research. Like, when I'm seeing teeth that are really messed up, I want to know, are you feeding these deer? If you are, what are you feeding them? So that I can kind of see how that impacts the lines. And that's just kind of my own little research project that I have going on. And, someday I hope it'll evolve into some ideal feed combination just based off what everyone's doing and what they're entering for their statistics and things like that. But that's just, it's in its infancy. So.
All right. Well, I know the guys that own Next Level Supplements. They're based out of Nebraska. I'll have to give them a line and tell them to maybe start putting some data into your nutrition program. And
yeah, exactly.
Talking about like research funding, man, what an awesome thing if we could get, like, I'm a resident of Illinois, and there's a ton of like Midwest states that invest a lot of money into their whitetail preservation and success. Yeah. Like, how cool would that be if we could just, even for 1 year, have a state, I mean, you would be overwhelmed. I mean, Illinois, we kill hundreds of thousands of deer in a season. But just for them to say, we are going to send, part of the check-in process is to send the teeth in. How cool would that data be, even just to look and say, okay, as a state, our antlered bucks this was our, curve of data with the highest being this many year old, and same thing just overall. That would be crazy.
A lot of states are doing that. So we do the whitetail teeth for Montana. The only difference is that they don't give us any data at all, right? So they keep whatever data they have. We don't get to sit there and analyze body mass size or anything like that. So really, we're way out of the loop. They aren't working together with us. But other states, they may have their own little programs. The problem is just like the funding. It all comes down to the funding. States don't want to pay a lot of money, as you might have surmised based on my description earlier. It's a lot of work to get a tooth done. It's not an easy process. It's a lot of equipment. It takes trained personnel. You can't just hire any idiot off the street to do it. So it's not easy to get it. So it's not cheap. Right.
Right.
And nobody wants to pay for it. So that's kind of the kicker, is that's where, the more and more the public gets involved and sends their own teeth, the more data we get, the more we can do our own research, just because we just have the data. We're not having to rely on people funding it. Customers are providing it, right? They're participating in this large scale study without even really knowing it half the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, would you say that a majority of your samples are more mature, or do you think is there a spectrum? Because I feel like the guys that really kind of want to know typically are, and this is a category, I'm not derogative in any way, but more of your trophy hunters, right? The ones who are very selective and they really want to take it to the next level to know how old that deer is.
So to be honest with you, I'll say it's all over the map. So there's a variety of different customers that use us for a variety of different reasons. We've got lease landowners that will punish people if they kill a deer that's too young, and they're sending it in to confirm what, find this person and send them off their land. And that's a little bit high pressure sometimes. I have worked on several of those cases where this guy's hunting rights are in the balance. And, obviously we take a little tiny bit of extra care with those kinds of samples. And then those can end up being very young. Right. And then you've got people whose kid just killed their very first spike, and they want to get a little certificate and get it aged for the kid because it's like a momentous occasion. So those can be pretty young. Then you've got your trophy hunters that are all after the warrior buck that's been hiding for the past 5 years, and they're very serious about getting it aged. And, and then you got everybody in between. So it's really, truly all over the map. It does lean more towards 4.5 and older. But it's all over the map, and everyone's using this for a variety of different reasons.
All right. So one of the questions I had for you was how fresh of a sample do you need? I mean, does age affect the accuracy?
No, it can be old. The only thing is once it's fossilized, we went down that route. Once it's fossilized, it requires an entirely different set of equipment that we don't have, and it's just a totally different process. So if it's that old, it's not going to work.
Right.
But the majority of people, when they say, oh no, my sample's too old, it's only been a year, 2 years, 10 years at worst, right? Right. So it's not a big deal. So no, age doesn't affect it. It's perfectly fine. The cementum's preserved. If it's been sun bleached, maybe if you found it and it's been sitting outside for 10 years and sun bleached, it can decalcify a lot quicker. But those are the kinds of things where that's why we request 2 teeth, because it's like, well, if one decalcified super fast and dissolved, let's just say, well, we know, let's run the second one and not put it in that long, right?
Right. So, and that really was a question more or less for a lot of shed hunters that listen to the podcast. If they find a deer that's dead, it's totally, you can take those teeth and send them in, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I even changed when we got our new software. Because I've had 2 different people request a change to the original certificate, because they always just defaulted to harvested by so-and-so. We now have 3 options where it could say found by so-and-so or hit by, because actually someone hit a deer and sent it in and wanted a certificate. So we have 3 options now.
Oh, so Cementum Aging doesn't only work on whitetails. There is a healthy list of species, right? I mean, not just specific to the ungulate species either.
That's correct. Yeah. I aged a raccoon last year. That was fun.
Really?
Yeah. One of our customers was like, can you age this raccoon? I think it's old. And I said, sure. And it was old. It was 9.5. So it's an old little bastard.
Carnivores like coyotes, bears, mountain lions, all those are game.
You hunt it, we age it.
Really? So, and you know what else? That's really cool to think about with your stress theory, because every animal would go through that stressful mating period where, like, as you were talking about earlier, if it was dictated on diet or temperature based, I mean, that's totally irrelevant when you get into some of these other things. Wow.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And obviously sometimes the aging changes based on the species, like the method that you go about it. Like the physical lab process is the same, but sometimes the interpretation of the lines will change, right? But that's a whole another podcast.
Yeah.
but basically, if it has teeth, we can age it. The only caveat is things like alligators, for example, they're aged using their femurs. So we would have to take the bone, not the teeth.
Because they shed their teeth, correct?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's why. And the femur, I can't remember. There's growth rings on the femur. I actually downloaded a protocol because we had someone that was going to send one in. So I downloaded a protocol from another researcher that I found, and we had planned on doing that. So we still have yet to age an alligator, but the day's coming, I'm sure.
Sure. So how many samples do you think you age in a year? Not just whitetails. Like how many do you run through your lab?
Well, when I first bought the company, they were doing about 1,100 a year. And last year we did 20,000.
Holy, you did 20,000. Come on now. Let's not fluff the numbers here a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of that was some state work and things like that. But yeah, it was a lot of teeth moving through the lab last year.
Holy moly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the oldest whitetail that you've ever had to age?
I believe it was a doe free range, and I'm pretty sure she was 22 and a half.
What?
Yeah, and it was a nightmare. I hated aging that deer.
22 is that? I mean, that's way outside of the normal realm for age.
So they do get up to the 20s. That is not that abnormal. So as more and more people start doing this and abandoning the inaccurate science of molar wear aging, I think we're going to see that. My theory is that deer mature much later than previously thought. So just based on I've only been doing this 5 years, but based off my 5 years of data that I've gathered, deer mature later than previously believed. But yeah, so the oldest whitetail doe was 22 and a half. She was from a protected hunting area, and the person had got a special permit. It was like an urban area or something like that. And then the oldest buck was 16 and a half, also free range.
Holy, wow. That totally, because most people say like, 10 years is about their maximum cap, right? That's
bullshit.
Yeah, takes it. Whoa.
I'm just saying, that's total bullshit. And what made me really start questioning was when I'd been doing it about a year-ish, and this girl sent in a deer free range from Pennsylvania, I believe. Big sucker. I mean, really, really big and very impressive rack. And they thought it was like 5.5 or 6.5, and it was 11.5.
Whoa.
And I'm like, this thing hasn't declined at all. This thing is like massive, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a clear 11.5. It's not like it was questioning or anything, right? And I thought, okay. Like, I think I'm right about this. I think that the reason why people think that deer decline earlier in life is because they've been relying on this inaccurate science. So if you think this worn down teeth, which is really like a 9-year-old deer, is actually 5.5, well, now you're telling everyone, okay, this deer is going to mature at 5.5 because I know that because the teeth are worn down this much, but it's never been confirmed with Cementum Annuli aging until now. Like, right, more people are doing it now, more people know about it now, and so it's kind of like, no, actually, none of that shit's true. Like, everyone was just thinking that because they were using this subjective science. It's not really accurate, you know.
I think so. I really don't. I'm not a score guy. There needs to be some unit of measure, and that's a completely different podcast. We've already talked about it, but there's Pope and Young, Boone and Crockett, and Safari International Club. Man, talking about throat.
I want to get into the record books.
Yes.
I haven't. So we just recently started talking with Boone and Crockett. We're going to be doing teeth for them now. So we're working on that kind of stuff. They're a little slow and difficult to work with on occasion, but we had the same thought. It was like, man, if we can start really like putting this puzzle piece together, right?
Yes, to see the number of entries, and because whitetails is 170 for a typical, and larger for non, and it'd be cool for the Boone and Crockett Club to adopt this method and hopefully marry up with you, right? I mean, but just say, hey, for entry, it's required that it's scored by one of our official scorers, and the teeth need to be sent in for aging.
Well, that's exactly what we're working on right now. So we've been talking about it for a while. We actually had to implement an entirely new system for them to track their samples specifically. So it's in the works right now. They just had their very large 99-year celebration or whatever. So this year was kind of like a little bit of a bad year to be working on it. But now that that's all over, things are going to start to progress a little bit faster.
Oh, wow. I really hope, not only for you, just for deer hunting in general.
Yeah.
I mean, and
exactly.
we're talking about really dismissing some huge myths here around whitetails. I mean, forever, even myself would say 5 and 6 is really when a whitetail peaks. But if they're living much longer than that, I mean, we're shortchanging an animal by several years.
I'm not that popular sometimes.
well, right. And I guess being a little more open-minded and data-driven. We got one coming in.
Oh no, I was able to silence the phone.
So, I mean, it would just, that would be really cool because it would change a lot of people's theories on hunting. You know what I mean? Especially the guys that are really into it.
Yeah. Well, and it gets harder and harder because every year that they get older, they get smarter and smarter, right? So then they start, hiding out and not coming out until the night hours. And that's how you get these ghost deer, as people like to call them, right? And that's where, my husband's a big proponent of everyone aging their does. He's like, if you start aging your does, now you know how old they get in your area. You've got these smart does out there that are on the front lines. So if you know how old those does are getting, you have an idea of how old the bucks can get, right? So then you have a little bit different gauge of your area too.
So talking about does, and this really opens my eyes to how really old a deer can get. There's a doe on one of our leases that is a piebald doe. She's very, very easy to distinguish. She's brindled, and she has a bright pink nose. She's not albino, and for years now she's been on there, and me and several of the other neighbors have unanimously said she's no way, shape, or form nobody's going to shoot her. And for a while I was like, man, I wonder if she's been gone. It's been like 5 years, and you're thinking about the normal, but no, she's still alive this year. Here she is. And it's been 6 years for me, but that doesn't mean anything now. She can live to be 22. Here I was like thinking, okay, she's got to be getting close to. Dude, she might be just catching stride. Wow, that's crazy. I'm so glad I did this podcast. What'd you say?
Yeah, totally. It varies a lot by region too. So you've got some areas where they have a lot more hunting pressure. So you've got these kind of, if it's brown, it's down kind of.
Oh yeah, that's everywhere in pockets.
So that kind of affects things too. So I'm not saying every deer everywhere can get to be 20 years old. It definitely depends on where you're located. And that's where, we have the motto, every deer, every year, for aging, because now you kind of get an idea. You're hunting the same area over and over. Now you kind of know, okay, well, every deer I've aged doesn't really get beyond this age, right? I haven't seen anything bigger. I haven't seen any, age anything older. This is probably where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of just helps you in your own region to kind of determine those things.
All right. So before we get into some other questions, let's a listener's hook now. Okay. They didn't know about you. We opened their eyes. How do they get a sample to you? Explain that process.
Okay, so in my mind, it's easy. Some people don't think so, but I think so. So all you do is go to deerage.com and go to our shop, and then we sell 3 kits, and the kits are based on turnaround time. If you want it faster, it costs more. You add the kit to your cart, and then you're just going to answer a bunch of questions about what you're sending in, because like we already mentioned, you can age anything, not just whitetail. So we ask a bunch of different questions. When was it harvested? Where was it harvested? Et cetera, et cetera. And then you can put in your own data for your, number of points, score, weight, all of that stuff. We don't require that information. It's nice to have, because that, again, the more data we have, we can compile this for people and eventually have a really big database on our website. So once you fill all that out, just continue to check out. We'll send you a kit in the mail, pop your teeth in there, send it back. And everything's delivered in the customer portal. So you'll have a customer portal you can log into, see when it's received, see when it's due, upload your pictures, ask questions about your tooth, etc. And yeah, that's how it works.
And it honestly is pretty easy, and it's addicting too. When I sent my samples in, you're kind of waiting to get the data, and then you finally get it. And I think you guys send an email out as well, so it's not like you got to check it every day.
Yeah, that's why we switched to the barcoding system. So the only thing I tell people is like, if you have Yahoo or Hotmail or AOL, you're going to be checking your spam, because Hotmail and Yahoo and AOL are like the worst email providers.
Yes.
And like almost everything lands in spam. So just keep an eye on your spam folder, and a big tip, like, for sure type in your email address accurately. Otherwise you definitely are not going to get any notifications at all. But we do, so once it shows up and we're checking in, we scan it in, and that will put a due date in your portal for you, and it'll send an email letting you know it's arrived. And then if anything's wrong with the sample, we usually leave notes in the portal, and that'll send an email letting you know that there's a note in there, or if we have a question, right? And then when it's done and we scan it to enter the age, it notifies you that your sample's in the portal.
Yep. And a couple other neat things, like you said, you can request certificates, which I think are neat, like you said, and it shows, you actually take a picture, a photo of the growth rings and show it right there, bulletproof. You know what I mean?
Yes, but that's like an additional service where I actually annotate the image for you. So basically I find a representative area of the tooth, and then highlight the lines so that you can see it. And then, it has your barcode on it and everything. And then that's delivered in your portal also.
And so
and we have a new type of certificate that we're working on getting set up too, that hopefully will be out. Well, it wasn't out this year, so let's hope for next year. But it's like a really cool photo plaque for like the real dandies.
Oh, nice. And so the other thing too that I want to note is that you can order these kits and give them as gifts. So you can order that, and then, for the hunters that you have in your life, they can redeem it upon harvest.
That's right. Yeah. So when you're checking out, if you just click later, that just basically says like, I don't actually have an animal right now, and anyone else can redeem that kit by just creating their own account. I mean, it's currency at that point. When you click later, that is a paid for kit that anyone can use. They would just have to follow the kit redeem instructions on the inside of the kit, create their own account, and enter the numbers from the barcode. And there you go.
So I've been blessed, and I've hunted all over the nation and hunted with several outfitters. Have you ever thought about working with as an outfitter? If I were to outfit, I feel like that would be valuable information for me, and it'd be pretty easy to kind of work that into the hunt cost, where, I'm sure you would work with them too, to some degree, to say, hey, if you buy, 100 kits at a time for a week turnaround, then it's just automatic for the outfitter, and they're using it for their own data as well, to be able to preface and highlight, hey, we not only shoot these big a deer, but they're this mature as well.
So we have actually what are called commercial accounts, and it's for that exact type of client. So with the commercial accounts, they are on approval. We do look at what kind of business you're running. It's not like, okay, I run a print shop and I just want a discount. Like, you need to be in the hunting industry,
right,
at a minimum. But yeah, so there are customers like that, like you say, outfitters, taxidermists, leased landowners, and things like that. And so we set them up with a commercial account where the discount is programmed into their account when they check out. And they also have the ability to order 90-day kits in advance of season at no charge, and then only pay when they redeem them. So it's a little bit of a twist on, because, if you've got an outfitter who doesn't know he's going to get 25 samples, he can order 25 kits and maybe only pay for 18 of them, and then pay for the other 3 at a later date, right?
Sure. And that's a good stepping point here. So you offer 3 different turnaround times. The standard kit is 90 days, and I found that it's usually a little bit faster than that. It has never been longer than that for me. Then you have a intermediate kit, which is 45 days, and then you have the platinum, which is 1 week turnaround.
Yeah, so basically how it works, and this is like how we're able to be as fast as we are. Hopefully my competition's not listening, but basically we check in once a week, right? So every Monday we check in everything that came in the week before, and the platinums literally on Monday immediately go to processing. There's no waiting. That's why we have a lot of people saying, oh, can you upgrade me to platinum? I'm like, sorry, bro, that's already over. Like,
right.
By the time you called me, it's over. They're already in processing. So the platinum teeth, Monday, they're checked in first, and then they're off and running to the lab, and they're due by Friday. My goal is always Wednesday, but they're due by Friday night, at the end of the day. And then the Express is a 45-day service, so a month and a half. And then we have the 90-day service for the patient folks out there. I will say upgrading is something that we tried to implement at one point. It's just too complicated because the way the samples are routed, they're sorted by level that week and they're routed where they got to go in the lab so that no one's losing track of anything. So, if you might kind of tend to be sort of an impatient person, just buy a platinum kit to have on hand. And then at least, like, if you don't want to use it for that deer, you can buy a 90-day kit and then just hang on to the platinum one for later.
Sure.
For the one you can't stand to wait, because upgrading is just really complicated. And so that's the kind of caveat to the 1 week service is if you send it to me and it shows up on a Wednesday, it's not going to get checked in until Monday. Right. And it's due by Friday. So it's from the due date is from check-in date, and we do it every Monday.
Wow. Okay. So some questions I have for you. Have you ever done any like noteworthy animals? Like, there's some famous animals that have been going around, specifically whitetails, but like state records, world records, anything that you know of that are like, man, when the listeners hear buck X, they're going to know what it is.
I wish I could tell you I knew that that's Chad's department.
Sure, because he's the hunter. We did.
I'm looking at the lines and I'm the one reading them. So I'm cranking out the lines. I would say 99.999% of the time, I don't even see what deer I'm aging. I'm only looking at the tooth and entering an age.
Right.
And I do that for a lot of reasons too. Partly it's so I'm not being biased, right? I don't want to be biased. It's not until someone says, hey, I think you did this wrong. I think, okay, let's look at the tooth again. Let's look at the deer. Let's look at the score. Let's pull its second tooth and run it. Let's see what happened here, right? That gets looked at. The rest of the time, I'm just flinging out ages. So have I done any noteworthy deer? I'm going to go with we probably have.
Oh, I guarantee it. Because, the Brewster buck, the Hoffman buck, I guarantee that you've had, and just them aside, I know you've had some absolute giants go through there.
Yeah, we do get some impressive deer. I will say, since we put in the new system, everybody wants to put their picture on our trophy page. We've actually started thinking about having 2 different pages because we can't even post everyone. There's so many, and we pay someone to help us with our posts just so that we can try to keep up.
Sure.
But yeah, unfortunately, like with me doing everything, managing the staff and reading the teeth and just trying to keep my head above water, I don't even see what's going on with the cool stuff. Every once in a while, someone will call and I'll get to talk to them and hear a cool story or email back and forth. And then that's really exciting. Or my husband will tell me, oh, this is so cool. Or, oh, we had this controversy on social media today. And I'm like, oh, leave me out of it. Because if anyone says anything bad when I'm doing my blood, sweat, and tears over this company, I'm just going to die.
Oh, yeah. Well, success breeds jealousy. I mean, and
it's true.
Like literally bring on the haters. I mean, yeah. I'm at a point now where, if you don't got haters, you're not doing something big enough,
That's so funny because I follow this kind of like business guru guy and he goes, if no one hates you, then you're doing it wrong. No one knows you. And
that's
I'm like,
right.
Well, we definitely have plenty of haters, so I guess I must be doing something right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, if somebody's listening and they need to hate on somebody, hate on me. Go ahead, bring it on. Keep motivating me. I'm serious. Like if you need somebody else to hate on, I'll give you something. I mean, come on. So
it's just hard because it's been a long road. When I bought the company, it wasn't exactly performing. My accountant said, definitely do not buy this company. And I was like, okay, so buy it then. Yes, let's do that. And they had a full paper-based system, but the volume was so much that paper, you can't keep track of that, right?
Oh,
it was too complicated. And so I had to put in almost like an emergency system. So we put in this I made it basically kind of this makeshift online ordering system that was sort of working, but we had to get a custom software developed, and it's been it's for sure been 2 years of development. And
Wow.
little by little, we keep tweaking it and making it better and trying to make it easier for customers to navigate it. And, I keep making improvements, but it all costs money and it all takes time. And, so just little by little, again, we're self-funded. We don't have investors, big money or anything like that. So we're just trying to do the best we can with it. And so whenever somebody's like, oh, your website sucks, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go drink some wine now because I busted my ass on that system. Like,
Oh yeah. Hey, you know what? Just remember, it's not cheap being cool.
no, it's not.
So what about any specimens that stick out? Like you talked about the old raccoon. Is there any, come on, you got to have some juicy ones here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, so I do. So one that just geeked me out big time. So we have this thing where a lot of customers will call in and they're like, hey, you say that you want the bottom front 2 teeth, but this deer doesn't have the bottom front 2 teeth. So should I send the side jaw? And so to just pre-answer that question for everyone, no, just saw off the front row of teeth about 1.5 inches back so you don't cut through the roots. And the teeth are typically in there, right? We can dig them out. They're usually down below the gum line, or we'll take one of the side teeth, right? So this guy called and that was his question. And I'm like, same answer, right? Saw it off, send it in. So he sends it in. And then my staff member brings me this nub after she's boiled it, and I'm not even kidding you, it looked like a knee bone or a tailbone or something. I'm like, what in the hell is that? She goes, yeah, this is, there's nothing, there's no teeth, what is this? And I'm like, I have no idea. And so I like message the guy and I go, hey, your deer doesn't have any teeth at all, this is like this weird nub. And he's like, yeah, I tried to tell you. And I thought, oh, I guess I should have listened more clearly. I thought you were like everyone else. And I was like, well, definitely send the side jaw now. So then since we're in the pathology, right, side with my other company,
Yeah,
I cut it up, sectioned it, sent pictures to my pathologist friend. And she's like, oh, and I think it was like I want to say like osteofibroma or something like that. But it was like this weird type of deformity that can come from an early injury, essentially. To where there was no teeth, there was no roots, there was nothing. It was just like this weird nubbin. And I had it on my desk for the longest time, but I eventually took it off because that's super creepy.
Yeah, there's nothing like, a nice desk artwork, just a sawn off deer jaw.
I got brains and bones and crypt keeper over here. But that was one that was super cool. So we did eventually get an age on him, and I think it was like 5.5 or something like that. And the rest of the teeth all aged normally and everything, but it was just really strange and just totally cool. And then we had another deer that I'm probably going to say this wrong again. I'm not 100, but it was like a crypto cervid or something, like where it was like it didn't have testicles or something. It was like a doe with a rack. I'm not exactly
sure.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And like
yes.
the whole rack was totally nubbed out. And if I remember right, the tooth was super hard to age because the lines were just all over the place. And that's one of the things where anything funky, like I said, the lines can be really wavy. They can like come in and out of focus, essentially, where like there's a thick line, then there's nothing. So you're like, do I count it? Do I not? And they can be a little bit harder to age, right? So that was kind of a weird one.
Interesting. Well, so Hershey's has had a blind eye, the teeth that I have at your place right now. So it'll be interesting.
Oh, cool.
I wonder if he'll have any of those abnormalities, because his rack was definitely, it stayed the same throughout his life, but it was not a typical rack. Like it's not a normal deer. So
yeah, well, we'll have to take a look when I see it come through. Did you do platinum service?
No, I'm the patient one.
No.
I know. Sorry, I just did the basic 90-day.
Well, I'll just try to remember, or just remind me when you get the age, and then we'll look at the tooth and see if it's weird.
Yeah. So, man. So, have you ever done like a mountain lion or a wolf? Is there any?
We've done mountain lion. Yeah, I did a 9-year-old mountain lion. That was a friend of ours. I have never. I don't think I've done any wolves. Done plenty of bears. Lots of moose. Their teeth are fun because they're gigantic.
Oh yeah, elk I'm sure as well.
Yeah, elk are pretty big. We do a lot of those. Elk, mule deer. I was really looking forward to that darn gator coming in, but it never panned out.
Come on, listeners, if you got a gator,
You get that femur in here.
yeah, she's hard up for a gator femur.
I hard up for a gator. I got a protocol and everything.
All
yeah,
right.
so it's like the weirdest thing. But yeah, I mean, my life consists of long days filled with body parts.
Wow. Well, that's somebody's cup of tea right there.
Yeah, great.
Well, anything.
That's how I knew that my husband was the one, because he did taxidermy for so long. And
right.
I had to cut up this Border Patrol canine, and we were doing a necropsy to see why the canine had passed. And my pathologist and I were cutting it up, and it just smelled god awful.
Ooh.
And she's like, "Doesn't that bother you?" Like, asking him. And he goes, No, I haven't had a sense of smell in forever because of the taxidermy chemicals. And I'm like, "Oh, isn't he great?"
Well, and so I mean, that's like a match made in heaven, right? Literally perfect. And he appreciates the animals. He obviously worked on them for so long. He's a hunter. Like, it's just perfect.
He's an excellent taxidermist too. Like, he's a true artist when it comes to that. And then, he's really helped out so much. So he runs the social media. We do have a girl we pay that does a lot of posting, but he's really in charge of our social media and what to post and how to post. And he didn't know anything about social media at all. He doesn't even barely use Facebook or anything. And he's had to just learn everything as he goes and trying to get the awareness out there. Because obviously my head's in the lab all day, every day. And I'm not a hunter. I do understand it. I appreciate it. I get excited about it. I even love hearing people's hunting stories and seeing some of the deer that they're sending in. And it's exciting. It's fun. I like the research, but I just don't have the time to do the stuff that he does. So it actually works really good to kind of team up with it.
Well, this podcast is going to launch just after Christmas, but gosh, if you guys pulled a dud on your Christmas gift, I'm telling you, this is going to be an awesome gift for any of your hunters. I mean,
absolutely. And we just came out with a new product too. So my husband, like I said, he's been hunting for a very long time. And over the years, he had kind of put together his little kind of kill bag, basically, with all the stuff that he typically uses. And he spent the last couple of years developing one. And now we actually have one on our website. So it's got everything you need to, harvest your game animal. You got flagging tape and electrical tape, everything everyone already has, but it's in a nice tidy bag.
Yeah, the kill kit.
And you got your field wipes and everything. You can take out the knife and put in your own knife or whatever, and add some stuff you like and take out stuff you don't like, but it's a handy dandy little bag with everything you need to break down your game. It's got a ground tarp, P cord to hang your quarters. I mean, it's got everything in it. And so we're selling those now too. That's new this year.
All right. That's awesome. So any last remarks here, Heather, before we close this out?
I just say every deer, every year, send them in and put your stats in there. It really helps with the data.
Well, and so for our listeners here, it's very simple to find the website. It's literally deerage.com. Now, their Instagram is not under Deer Age. It's actually under Wildlife Labs, all one word. Wildlife Labs or Wildlife Analytical Labs is their account name, and you can tell because they have the Deer Age logo, which is a green kind of European style deer. But you should check them out. You can see so many cool animals that are on there, and you guys do a really good job. Whether it's your husband or the gal that you have that posts stories daily of the samples that you guys are aging. So it's also interesting for me. I mean, I check it all the time because you see a picture of the deer and then it shows how old it is too. So you get a really nice catalog of all these different animals, and it is mostly whitetails, but every once in a while you'll see a mule deer, an elk, or something else on there. But that's how people can find you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I think it's Wildlife Labs is the handle, the Instagram handle. We tried to get Deer Age. Someone already had it, and it's an unused account. We petitioned several times to have it, but Instagram. So there you go. We don't have it, but it's okay. Wildlife Labs. That's actually the official name of the company is Wildlife Analytical Labs, and the original owner just got the domain name deerage.com, and everyone has coined it deer age. Everyone. We called it deer age. All our customers call it deer age. And so when we kind of redid the logo and kind of did a new look for the company, the designer went with the deer age theme, and we just kind of have adopted it. So.
Well, that's what I've always referred it to. Whenever I talk to any of my buddies, it's deer age, you know?
Yep.
So cool. Well,
Exactly.
Heather, I'm so glad I did this podcast. I've learned so much. And seriously, the most mind-blowing statistic, I think, is how old deer can be. I'm still like trying to grasp that. And shame on me, because I'm pretty far right when it comes to like deer hunting. And man, I'm going to be keeping close tabs. I hope that Boone and Crockett Club and you guys work out something. That would be so, I mean, it would be good for you, for them, and just for everybody in general.
Yeah, and maybe SCI at some point too, and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I'm not sure. We just haven't, again, only one person. But one of the things is sometimes when someone gets an old deer that's like 10 years old, they're all like, oh my gosh, is that even possible? And it kind of just makes me snicker inside, because I'm thinking, yeah, probably like 1 to 2 out of every 100 that I do are over 10 years old. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, it's not the most common thing, but it's certainly not uncommon.
Well, and I wonder too, like some of the Game and Fish and Division of Natural Resources, like there are some really coveted tags out west, especially when you get into sheep and goats.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Their check-in process is a lot different than a lot of the other species, and I feel like that again, that could be incorporated really easy into like the tag cost. Where an example in Colorado. When you harvest a bear, any method doesn't matter. You have to take it to a DNR station or a Game and Fish, and they actually pull a tooth.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, I mean, this is something that totally 100% could be plausible. And like I said, especially for those sheep and goat tags, which some units are only a handful a unit, you know, so we're not. Go ahead.
Yeah, the only problem is just based off working with some different states is like, again, the money, like, it's a problem for the states. And then also just like any state run facility of any kind. I mean, look at the Postal Service, right? Like any government run facility, like sometimes it just doesn't go well. It doesn't go smooth. They don't have staffing, like, things are maybe not quite as accurate and things like that. Like, I think that like hoping for that is probably unrealistic, right? It's just easier if people just start doing it. We try to keep it as affordable as possible, so that's not like, if you're patient, like it's not very expensive for this kind of service. No,
not at all.
We're doing more steps doing what we're doing than you would need to do DNA work. Like it's that much more complicated. But like you wouldn't say, oh, a DNA test, like $100, like you'd be like, that's affordable. So like $30 for this is like a really good value. You know what I mean? For what the amount of work that goes into it. So yeah, just getting the data in there so that we have more and more people doing this and not relying on those states. It's a much faster and more efficient way to go, I think, because it can be a little bit of a mess sometimes with the states.
Well, Heather, I wish you the best. I support Deer Age to the nth degree. I hope that all these things come to fruition. And again, I appreciate all the time you took today. And I mean, again, if any of the listeners need anything, I'm telling you, go to Deer Age. I've messaged to set this up. I messaged your Instagram handle, was able to go through there, and it sounds like you field calls and emails personally yourself. So, in closing, go ahead.
And about the phone calls, like we do not have a full-time secretary right now. We did last year, but we do not have one this year. So I just always tell them, just leave a message. Like we call you back, leave a message. We'll get to you, send an email. It's a little bit easier. We do check the emails multiple times a day, but everybody's in the lab. We're all trying to make sure we're not missing deadlines. So that's where we are.
All right. Well, again, Heather, thank you very much. Have a Merry Christmas, and I'll be looking forward to seeing more and more samples on your Instagram feed, okay?
Thanks so much. Merry Christmas to you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. I'm so happy that I did this podcast. And maybe it's just me, because I'm a gear junkie and a little bit of a science background with my college and a nerd in that sense. But gosh, when it comes to deer hunting, I'm like, I want to learn as much as I can. And it's it's really, really, really interesting to talk to somebody who does this every single day and to share like the findings, the fact that most likely stress is what's inhibiting these deposits. And that the big one for me is that the myth that deer really mature or reach peak, at a much younger than I think most of us realize, or much older than most of us realize. So I've sent in 3 different samples to deer age. Every one has been what I believed it to be. This one with Hershey's is going to be the most interesting just because I am shooting from the hip. So I have full confidence that Heather's going to age that sample correctly. But gosh, I mean, I'm telling you guys, if you haven't done it yet, it becomes almost addicting. And I've been patient and maybe a little more tight with my money than I should be, but I usually go with the 90-day turnaround time. So, but they offer 1 week. I mean, that's blazing fast. So if you haven't checked them out, I mean, we don't work with them at all. I actually messaged them, seeing if Heather would like to do the podcast, and they were very open to it. So it's Wildlife Labs. I would check out their Instagram. I would check out their website. And she obviously sounds like she's a really nice person, and she's obviously kind of grown this from the ground up. It'd be awesome to just help support her. So other than that, we've got some other ones cooking up, coming in. We got some more controversies down the line. And as always, really appreciate you just tuning in and supporting us, and just don't waste it. We'll catch you next time.